Alright, this is John Cola with OKRaw.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, coming at you from a beautiful backyard garden overlooking my amazing, Breton shiso, green on the top, purple on the bottom. My amazing purple basil, got red Reuben, red Rosie, growing this year. Man, I got so much basil, it's really cool. I love having endless supplies of basil whenever I want it, and I encourage you guys to grow a garden as well. Anyways, in this episode, I'll be responding to your comments. I rarely ever do this. If you notice, I barely ever reply to any comments that are left under the video in text format. And that's simply because there is one of me, and I have a lot of people that follow me nowadays. Over 100,000 people on this channel, over 770,000 people on my gardening channel, and over 100,000 people on my juicer's channel, as well as 50,000 people on my Instagram. And I get so many people asking me all kinds of questions, and don't feel I'm ignoring you, please. That's not the case. I just simply don't have the time, alone today just for work. I responded to over 50 emails, and that's a lot of work. And then I had to prepare my food, eat my food, rest, meditate, do relaxation, do my gardening, edit and upload videos and everything I do, and I just simply don't have the time. I wish I had more time to respond to everybody personally. Once again, I apologize, and please, as much as I would like to apologize, please understand I'm not humanly available to do it at this time. I don't even get everything done in life that I need to do every day. I start off my day with a bunch of things I need to do that I never get done. I wish I had some help or assistance. And hey, if you want some questions getting answered, I need an assistant. You can be my assistant and hang out with me every day and ask me all the questions you want. But also, more importantly, help me out to get things in life that I need to get done. That'd be wonderful. Anyways, if you do need to ask me a question and you really want to make sure it happens, hey, I do have a way you can do that. There's a link down below to a Fiverr. And basically for $5 plus small service fee, I will call you for 10 minutes and answer any questions to the best of my ability that I'm able. That's the only way I have available to get, so that you can access me, because my time is the most precious thing to me in the entire world, and hopefully your time is precious to you as well. And I don't do that. I don't do Fiverr for the money. I don't need your $5. But the money that comes into Fiverr actually stays in the Fiverr account that then is used to transcribe my videos and convert my videos from the audio format, which I'm good at doing, into transcription, into English transcription that then YouTube can translate into foreign language to make people that are hearing impaired or speak foreign languages, make my content available for them. So I want to thank you guys for doing that. Once again, link is down below in the description for that. Anyways, let's go get into responding to some of your comments. I made a video, my last video, or two videos ago, was actually just sharing with you guys a soup that I made. It's a super nutrient dense soup. It's what I've come up with after all these years, one of my favorite recipes I like to make. And there's a lot of comments, many good, great, thank you, and some not so good. And here's the thing, right? I really, on one level, wanted to make that video because I want to share what I'm doing. On another level, I just cut my finger that day right here. It's almost healed up now, a week later. I almost don't need a bandage on it. And it was not feeling good, but it's important for me to generate the content, to put out content that literally nobody else is doing. And I understand not everybody's going to agree with me, and that's totally fine. I'm not, I don't need to, you guys don't need to like me. I just want to be able to share what I'm doing and, explain what I'm doing. And, I have my reasons for doing things, and you guys have your reasons for doing things. And once again, I think, having tolerance is very important, and acceptance of other people, no matter what their differences are, whether that's the skin color, the kind of food they eat, whether it's raw, nutrient dense, and some heat processed foods, or, like I like to call it, or whatever, and I think intolerance is a big problem in our society today. As you may know, if you're watching the news and with everything going on, I fully support and stand for the freedom and just people being able to voice their words, and also Black lives matter, guys. All lives matter. Every life matter. Animal lives matter. Every life matters, and we should not discriminate, treat people differently because of anything, including the way they happen to eat, all right? So with that, we're going to get into responding to some of the comments. I don't think I've ever done a video of this format before. Let me know down below in the comments if you like this format or not, all right? So I'm going to answer some comments, respond to some comments, and just share my general comments on comments, all right? First comment is from Jarno Health. No offense, but I would never eat this. I laugh so hard because there's literally 1,000 different ingredients that don't combine at all, in my opinion. I've never seen a recipe with so many ingredients. Haha, I like your videos, but this recipe would definitely not be for me. All right, Jarno Health. So yes, I'm glad if you don't want to eat this, and it is not 1,000 different ingredients, but it is a lot of ingredients. There wasn't even 100 ingredients in there, but there was definitely a lot of ingredients. And my philosophy these days is that having a big diversity of food in your diet is critical, whether you want to do that in one meal like I do, so I could check off more boxes and have more nutrient density, have more diversity in my diet, great. And if you want to eat more simply, I encourage you guys just to include, eat different things in smaller quantities in the properly combined method for you every day as much as you can. So that really was the goal of the video. Now, for me, and food combining, right? I've never been a super huge fan of food combining. In the olden days, I would, eat simply, which basically would mean I'm food combining because I would eat so simply. Nowadays, I'm combining things that may not be super optimal. And, here's my opinion now, looking back on the food combining. I've had friends and girlfriends that actually really needed to food combine, or they just wouldn't handle things well. And is there something to food combining? I think it can be valid and can be helpful for many people, but I don't think, optimally that we should necessarily, although everybody's different, need to food combine. I think if you need to food combine, in my personal opinion, and I'm not a doctor, so if you have some kind of medical condition, go see a doctor. But in my personal opinion, I think, if you need to food combine, maybe your digestive system is not functioning optimally and able to handle everything. And why is that? Well, there's dysbiosis. There's many different reasons, but one of the things I think lately is that the microbiome in your intestines are really not that robust, right? The wider the variety of microbiota, if you have a better microbiome in your guts, you can basically digest more different items, and and your body will be more resilient, in my opinion. All right. Next question is from Amy. John, what does this taste like? Can you give some sort of description or explanation of the flavor? All right, Amy. So that, once again, this video is referring to my soup video. So what does it taste like? So actually, the soup I made in that video was, to me, actually rather bland. I usually try to put a little bit more hot pepper powder in there, or have some kind of spices or herbs. But because I put so many different ingredients, it pretty much balanced out everything, and it basically is just crunching on vegetables with little flavor. Generally, I like to use, a base, which is the blended peppers, and in that case, it was blended peppers, 95% with 5% carrots to top it off. I probably would have added more peppers. Sometimes I blend in like sun-dried tomatoes and sun-dried peppers, or dried peppers and dried tomatoes into the mixture to kind of give it more umami flavor. Sometimes I'll add more miso. And every time's a little bit different. Sometimes I make it and it's like super good and I put like more taco seasoning in. Sometimes I make it and it's more plain. Sometimes I use Italian seasoning. Every time is totally different. But basically it tastes like the vegetables you're putting in there. And if you put one, like more of certain ingredients, such as some of the spices, you could really overpower it. So like if I'm making a curry one and I could add curry powder, maybe some dates or something for sweetness, put a lot more curry in there, then I have like more of a curry-esque flavor, So, I mean, that's what it tastes like to me. Of course, everybody's taste buds is different. And of course, please adjust the recipe, guys, to what you feel right and what feels right for you. Don't make my exact same recipe. That was made for me. All right. Next question is from Eating My Vegetables. And then this is once again regarding the soup video. Even he knows it looks terrible. 3211. So yes, some of my food that I make is not picturesque, Instagram quality. I I'm definitely, and I'll admit this to the camera and everybody, I don't really care, I'm more pragmatic and practical. And, you know, does this have the nutrition I want? That's more important than does it take a good picture or does it look good? You know? Hey, it's great if you guys want to make things that look good and are tasty and are nutritious, because a lot of things that may look good may not be so nutritious. Although if I did want to take some extra time to maybe not blend it as much, add a few extra things into the blender container, maybe like some beet juice, it would come out a little bit more red, or, you know, whatever. I could have done that, but, you know, that's not really that important to me personally, all right? Sweet Sunshine says, heat processed, question mark, cooked. So that's how they probably meant it. Yeah, so I like to say, you know, I heat process, you know, very few foods that I consume, you know, people might consider cooked, you know, and unfortunately in the raw foods movement in general, I believe cooked is like a bad word. It's like, it's cooked, and cooked. When you say cooked, you think bad in your head. It goes ding, 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 bad, cook bad, cook bad. I mean, this is what I equated cooked food to back in the day when a book was basically plagiarized, and the end of every chapter of the book that was plagiarized, written by Nature's First Law, and I won't mention who Nature's First Law was composed of, basically said cooked food is poison. And, you know, that was not entirely right. You know, yes, cooked foods can be quite toxic. The way I heat process the foods, you know, is minimally heat processed, you know, just to remove some toxins on there. But I believe it creates additional nutrients and makes me more resilient in the end than not including those items. And it was very few items I had that were heat processed. I heat processed some beans, but then I fermented them, so now they're live and not cooked because they have active enzymes, and there's more active enzymes in a fermented food than dehydrated food for sure. In my opinion. The mushrooms were also heat processed, but I had already been using mushroom powder. I think the artichokes also, I was previously using like frozen artichokes, but I found the canned ones, or the ones not in cans, because I wouldn't use cans, but the ones in jars, to me taste much better. They kind of remind me of when I was a kid, and I used to love those things. Oh, and the ones that I get in the jars don't have any oil. Next comment is from Biospheres. Clever with the monotastic soup. Now you can eat your compost or compost your eats without any additional steps. Real question, what is the average cost per cup? That's a good question. Like, I haven't figured this out myself. You know, when I source all my produce that I buy, I usually buy ingredients that are on sale in general. So, I mean, today I bought organic cantaloupes that were like this big for $1.50 each. I bought jicama, 5 pounds for $1. I bought four white coconuts for $1.50 each. And I bought 2 pineapples, smaller size, it could have been riper, for 89 cents that will end up in a juice. You know, so some of the other ingredients, you know, the mushrooms actually that I use in the recipe were $1 per every 4 ounces. I used 4 packages of them. It was to be a pound. Mushroom powders and some of the powders I use actually get quite spendy, quite pricey. But you know, you don't have to make my exact recipe. The natto actually for 3 ounces or 4 ounces, whatever they are, that's like $4. So that's kind of expensive. Of course, the beans I cooked, organic beans, I think they're like $2 a pound, and that was just a small portion of those. Of course, all the basil and things for my garden, I don't even know if I put a price on it. That's just kind of fun gardening, and I consider them free, although I may have had to buy the starter plants. You know, there's one plant here was $2.50, but this will basically feed me all summer because I just come around and top it, and as I top it, I eat it, but then it grows and branches more, and it gets a bigger bush, and I have even more to eat. You know, so to me, yes, cost is definitely important. I cut costs on as many ingredients as I can, but also I've realized that, you know, you need to spend some money to get some good quality stuff sometimes. And, you know, it's just more important for me than to eat properly and eat healthily, what I believe to be healthily, you know, than worry about, oh, is that $12 a cup it cost or whatever. I mean, the bell peppers I bought that I juiced a bunch of bell peppers to make 64 ounces of juice. The bell peppers were basically, I got them for 99 cents for 2 organic peppers, bell peppers. I don't know how many I ended up juicing because I had to juice whatever I had that was gonna go bad. So that's what I use. So I mean, I don't really know. Of course, you can cut the cost of it by, use carrot juice instead of bell pepper juice. Carrots are a lot cheaper. Shred up carrots and, radishes and beets and other things that are less expensive. So it all depends on you as to how much it's going to cost and the ingredients you have. And, use the ingredients you have. You don't have to duplicate my soup, right? I was trying to show you guys a model of what I'm doing at this time, but by no means do you need to duplicate it exactly. And actually, I would encourage you guys not to duplicate it exactly. All right. Next question is from Taint Mule Slicks. You feed that to your dog? ? There's garlic and onions in there. All right. So there are definitely foods that are identified as being toxic to dogs. In general, I don't believe garlic is actually mentioned as one of them. They have many different dog foods with garlic. As well as like basically I know Trader Joe's and other places sell like garlic supplements for dogs, which are supposed to be like anti-flea for them, because I guess it makes their blood, because they detoxify it in their blood like we do, so that's why we smell like garlic after we eat it, because it's going on in our blood. And then the fleas don't like to eat the blood of the dogs that have the garlic in there. Onions, a little bit different story. Onions are categorized as something you should not feed to dogs. And depending on what list you look at, avocados you should not feed to dogs. I feed avocados to dogs, and actually there's a dog food with avocados in it called Avoderm. You shouldn't feed the skin of avocados or the pits to the dogs, but the flesh is totally fine. I came back from Puerto Rico and there was a raw chocolate bar in my bag, and my dog found it and he ate like half of it. I mean, he didn't lose his life. He was really hyperactive that night and didn't sleep. But yeah, it's not my goal to knowingly feed my dog things that are poisonous. That being said, like many things, the dose is in the poison, in my opinion. And also there can be health benefits to certain foods inside us, inside dogs, and so my personal belief is that the overwhelming majority of the items in my recipe, which made up the bulk of the recipe, is non-toxic dogs. Yes, was there an ingredient or two that is not optimal to feed to dogs? Yes, but when I'm feeding my dog a really small portion, he's basically getting hardly any of the onion in there, for example, because he just gets a small portion. Plus, I also feed my dog other things besides just the soup that I eat. He gets a wide variety of foods that I may make a video on in the future. Actually, I think I'm going to answer another question about in a second. Of course, feed your dog however you see fit. Please heed all warnings for your dog or even for yourselves if you have any allergies to any specific foods. Like, if I have a recipe with peanuts and you're super allergic to peanuts or other tree nuts, don't include any of those in your recipes, please. Use some common sense, guys. All right. Next question is comment is from JJJ. The pancreas overload with many ingredients. The digestive system will be destroyed. The utilization of minerals and sugars depend on the endocrine system. Fermented foods must be eaten in moderation, as well as the mushrooms. The cleanser the body, the less food required. Herbs are best for enhancing the endocrine glands. All right, there's a few misspellings in there. But, here's the thing. That meal did not destroy my digestive system. Now, there may have been times when I would eat something that complex and I would have gas and bloating and belching. But here's the thing. I've been working on my digestive system to getting it geared up to the present moment today for the last 25 years. I've stretched and pushed and pulled my digestive system all these years by eating so many different kinds of plant foods, and I push it even further. And so I like to think my digestive system is more like a large rubber band that you could spring out super far and then it comes back and contracts super tight. Some people, if you have a rubber band, that's kind of worn out, been sitting in the sun, you pull it a little bit and then it snaps, right? And that's how I think most people's digestive systems are. They're not really accustomed to eating this way, especially if you're just getting off a, standard American diet or meat-heavy diet, and then you try to go to all plants. Your digestive system will react violently to my recipe, react violently to all the different plant fibers. I flood my body and have been flooding my body with plant fibers. And even things that have been maybe overly fermented or maybe questionably bad or something every once in a while. I mean, I don't do make a habit of that, but, I like to challenge my digestive system, to get away with it. And how do I know it's working well? Because I look at what comes out when I'm done, right? I've also modified my eating schedule, which I will probably make another video about next. And my digestive system has never been better, right? Never been better. My food has been fully digested. I don't see any food particles in there. It's been like this for a long time. And I could definitely say with other, roommates and girlfriends that have lived with me in the past, they would eat the same exact diet. And when I would see, after they went to the bathroom, it did not look the same as mine. So then I would say that their digestive system is maybe not at the snuff and not handling the food as well as I am. Once again, you guys need to tailor your diet to you and what digests well for you. Leave some items out, and what I encourage you guys to do to strengthen your digestive system is not overloaded at any one time, but eat like, say your body's used to eating 30 bananas a day. I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't do it myself, but that's what you're into, and you're doing that for years, and your body digests that pretty good. But if you deviate from that, it just doesn't work. So then you're going to do 29 bananas and 1 carrot a day. Do that for a week, right? And your body will get used to slowly the carrots. You'll get the microbiome to digest carrots slowly. This is just an example. And then, decrease the bananas, increase the carrots, and then keep adding other foods. Same thing with beans. Beans can be very hard to digest. I don't recommend cooking and eating cooked beans. However, I do cook beans and then ferment them, which in my opinion is the easiest way to digest beans, because not only are some of the toxins removed by the cooking process that makes it more digestible, but now the bacteria have acted upon it to make it even more digestible without having the ill effect consequences of not having any friends because you smell. All right, so that's my comment on that. Next comment I'm responding to is Sweet Sunshine. Cook food creep in evidence here. John's mantra used to be, fresh is best. Now prepping a week's worth of food in a week, in a day, or in a meal. I know we are all free to change and do what we feel, but not feeling inspired by this. Long-term follower. All right, Sweet Sunshine. So I could only apologize for how you feel, but times change, things change. When I was a bit younger, I had more free time on my hands. Nowadays with business and with my garden and with everything I'm doing, do I think freshness is bestest? Absolutely. I still say that. Why do I grow a huge garden, right? Is there a few heat process items? Yes, but they make up a very small percentage of the whole recipe. And if you want to focus on that, then I personally don't think that's healthy. Freshness is still best. I try to eat most of my meals, prepared fresh. But, here's the thing. Could you, I don't know if you work or what you do in your life, could you make that recipe that I made that has so many ingredients and bring them all together each and every day? It takes me time. If I'm making a meal for myself, it takes an hour, hour and a half, right? Just for a night salad. And, I have a lot of other things to do in the day. I would much rather make my food fresh every day. Absolutely, that is the best. That is the optimal. But even for me, it's not always possible. So what's better? Grabbing some dates and nuts because I'm too tired to make a salad at the end of the day because I've, done so many things, worked in the garden in 100-degree weather and, kicked butt, answering emails and made videos and edited videos and uploaded videos for you guys, and then just eat shit or eat really crappy, eat 30 bananas and some dates in a blended smoothie. I just couldn't do that to myself. So the option for me is, hey, if I make it in advance, if I'm going to really work hard that day, I know I have a meal at night, so I don't have to stop what I'm doing early to make a meal. If I am making a meal, I don't always make several days in advance. I usually only like to make maybe 1 or 2 days extras. So here's the thing. If I'm taking the time to make an hour-long or hour-and-a-half-long meal by harvesting produce, washing it, preparing it, doing a multi-step dressing where I might have to use juice or I might have to do this or that, cutting out bad spots of avocados like I did the other day, sprouting, all these different things. If I use the time and maybe add an extra 15 minutes instead of making 1 day's of meals, right? It's a much better, more beneficial use of time to use an extra 15 minutes. Now I have 2 days of meals or 3 days of meals than saving the 15 minutes and only making 1 day's of meals, right? And once again, this is your call. I will say, it is always best to make it fresh every day. And if I had a wife, a girlfriend, an assistant, or somebody helping me do everything I do, I would do it. I mean, I want to hire a chef, one of these days, have an assistant who's a chef and does helps me out in many ways. And yes, I would absolutely prepare things, every day, because they'd be doing it for me. But I can't possibly do everything. So cut me some slack. All right. And I'm not saying prepping a food in advance is better. But that being said, because I found vacuum sealing my jars, that makes a huge difference. I would never prep a meal's worth or, several days worth of food in one setting without vacuum sealing it. That is ludicrous. Because if I store things in the vacuum and then it loses vacuum, I significantly taste the difference and taste the lower, I taste the oxidation damage actually in there. It doesn't taste as good. So this is totally a game changer to me as well, the vacuum saving the food meals. All right, next question is from Pesto12601. So you used to believe one thing and science has now taught you it was wrong. So you now believe something else, which would also be proven wrong in 3 to 5 years. So perhaps eating a non-plant diet is actually good for you, or good for you too. You used to only eat raw, but now you don't. So raw is no longer best. Mono meals were the best years ago. You also used to push water fast, smoothies, and green drinks. Are those things no longer the best too? The funny thing, what works for one person may not work for another, so perhaps the best is what works for you? Question mark. All right. So many different comments. So the first thing is you talk about, I used to believe things that I basically read about raw foods. There's not a lot of science about raw foods. It is now emerging, and some of the reasons why raw foods is so beneficial is coming out in the science. That being said, a lot of foundation of raw foods is more common sense, and some of them don't necessarily hold true, although many of them still do. That being said, science is evolving, and the main thing I learned lately is that the microbiome is super key, super important, and that we want to increase our diversity of foods. And I don't know how that really gets into how eating, eating non-plant-based diet is actually good for you. The science is still clear on that. Basically, the science says from multiple sources that the science that I read, I don't know about the science you read, that basically if you want to eat animal foods, science doesn't necessarily say it's not healthy. It says that it's only unhealthy if you eat too much and they're in excess and it makes up too much of your diet. So for example, I think if you eat under 10% of your total calories from animal foods, I personally wouldn't argue with that. You can't argue that 10% of your calories or less is actually unhealthy for you unless you're eating the other 90% as processed standard American food. If you're eating whole plant foods like I would eat, like make my soup and add some chopped chicken from your chicken that you raised and killed in your backyard and put it in there, dude, I mean, I don't encourage killing animals, but dude, that's way better than most people. So I always encourage you guys to do good, better, best, and do what you think is right. Hey, if you think you need some animal products, modify some of my healthy plant-based meals and put some animal products in there. I'm not going to tell you to do that, nor do I advocate it, because I personally believe we do not need animal products, and that is something that is probably not going to change. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but it's probably not going to change, because here's the thing. My belief is also that, if there's a nutrient in the animal, then the question should be not, should I eat the animal to get it, but the question should be, how can I get that nutrient, from a different way? How did the animal get it, and then how I will get it that way, okay? And then let's see. You used to only eat raw, so I have always advertised pretty much for as long as I can remember that I'm 99% raw. I've always eaten some heat processed, quote unquote, raw foods. I mean, I was a big advocate of this back in the day. I made some videos. Just because it's raw doesn't mean it's healthy, right? And raw should not be law. Raw shouldn't be the factor that determines if something is healthy or not. Things could be quite healthy even if they're not raw, although there are advantages to eating many foods raw. And so this hasn't changed significantly And I've never really been, I mean, maybe when I first got in it many years ago, I was like more of a dogmatic raw foodist. But, you know, since I've been making YouTube videos, I think I've been a little bit more calm on that. And I definitely have changed a little bit. And, you know, I do think that eating a high raw food diet is still best. Absolutely. Should somebody eat all raw? Well, I personally don't recommend an all raw diet for everyone. If you are doing that and it is working for you and you can verify that with blood tests, continue and do that. But it just makes life a little bit more challenging and difficult for the average person. You know, I focus my life around my food. My diet is very important to me. I don't really know what else I'd do in my life if I didn't have a garden and didn't get to research everything that I do, because I honestly love it, right? I don't know that I'd really want to do anything else. You used to also push water fast, smoothies, and green drinks. Are those no longer the best too? Oh, mono meals were the best. So yes, I did do some mono meals, but I was never super hardcore to mono meals. I maybe did a mono meal, like one mono meal a day. And you know, I think the other thing is that the term best is overused in our language today. Everybody always wants to know the one answer, what is the best, because I'm not going to do anything else. And that's not the right approach to have to health, you know. In many ways, raw foods is one of the best diets, but it's not the perfect diet, so everybody needs to adjust and tailor that to them. I also, you know, agree that water fasts, when used appropriately, when properly supervised, can be quite beneficial. And the key word is, as I've always promoted, supervised water fasts. You know, my dad went to True North Health Center, Dr. Alan Goldhammer in Santa Rosa, California. He water fasted for 30 days. And for his situation, and he has blood tests to prove it, it was quite beneficial. Could water fasts also be bad? Yes. Nothing is ever always clear-cut, good or bad. It depends on the individual, the person, and if you go to, you know, True North and see Dr. Goldhammer, they're going to tell you in some cases water fasting is not the best thing to do, and maybe you should juice fast instead. And, you know, the other thing is fasting may and probably also can negatively affect your microbiome by basically not feeding your probiotics for a period of time. So in that case, it might not be good. Fasting done recklessly, like some practitioners in the raw foods community do, I do not recommend, and I am staunchly against it, especially when people are losing their lives, and there are reports of people losing their lives at certain fasting facilities and certain people getting taken advantage of by people that are fasting them. These things are not right, and I stand up against things that are not right. Smoothies, yes, I'm staunchly against using a Vitamix and making a smoothie or making any smoothie in a non-vacuum blender now, because I now have experienced vacuum blending, and hopefully many of you guys that follow me are experiencing vacuum blending. And if you are, please post some comments down below. I made a video, $55 vacuum blender that I'd rather use instead of a $400 Vitamix, simply because of the fact that it vacuum blends. And I know a lot of you guys have got that because the vacuum blender that I promoted in that video are now sold out. You can't even get that. It was such an amazing deal. And I'm like thinking, man, I should have bought at least one extra one as a gift to have hanging around. But I didn't, because I wanted you guys to get them and experience the difference. So please post down below what it's done for you. But I don't advocate making smoothies that are non-vacuum blended anymore. You know, is it better than drinking a soda? Absolutely. But why do that when you could get an inexpensive vacuum blender or even make your own? I have a modification to a Nutribullet that I made for 20 bucks before I could even buy a vacuum blender. And I'll show you guys how to do that so that you guys can start vacuum blending, because it does make a difference. There is more nutrition, right? And yeah, and I still encourage the use of smoothies. You know, it offers things that a juice would not. You know, like over here I have my mint. And my mint, I usually in many cases will basically make a smoothie out of my mint. I have a mint-based smoothie as my primary leafy green in there. I also will juice my mint too, you know, and sometimes I'll even pick my mint to put in my soups and my salads. Any way you can get more plant foods, especially these high nutrient dense plant foods, I encourage you guys. Oh, green drinks, are those not good or not best? I'm still a big fan of green drinks, and I want to once again encourage you guys to rotate your green drinks. Just because the mean green tastes good, or you know, whatever different green juice you're making, lemon ginger blast is good. Please guys, don't make the same juice every single day. Do yourself the favor, do your microbiome a favor, and make different recipes. Juice some basil tomorrow, juice some mint the next day if you never juiced before. juice different kinds of produce items. As much as one recipe could be great, having a diversity, in my opinion, is even more important. And I do agree that what works for one person may not work for another. But the other thing that I would also agree with is that we are all human, and all humans have certain nutritional requirements within a certain range. Yes, some people might need more of this vitamin or this nutrient and then that. Some people may be more deficient in this or that. Some people may not be able to digest this food or that. So yes, there are overall concepts that should be applied to everyone that is very important. Like, human beings, in my opinion, based on our digestive system and our anatomy and our digestion, we are basically plant eaters. Some people might say we're frugivorous. I would say we're definitely, we should eat fruit and we should eat vegetables, and if they're too hard to digest, that's why I like to juice them, especially so I could get more of them in me. And that I would definitely agree on, and many other things are up to debate. And I also believe strongly that everybody needs to eat high nutrient dense foods, which means focus on the micronutrients, not the macros. All right, next question is from Miguel Angel Jimenez. I almost forgot which is the product and flavor of the CBD cannabis hemp that you used and straight up eat. Looking forward to your reply. All right, Miguel. So actually, I bought some 50 state legal, maybe except in Idaho or something, from what I learned, hemp from a place in Oregon, Med Hemp Emporium, that I do not recommend because they claimed it was organic. I bought it and I took it to a cannabis show and they tested it with basically testing device to test for organic phosphate chemicals or pesticides that was designed for the U.S. military, and it came back as hot, meaning even this organic hemp that I bought was tainted and wasn't organic. And so I can't at this time recommend a place to buy your hemp from that you could get it shipped to. Where I get my hemp, I think it's called Pineapple Tonic is the cultivar name. It's from State Flower, which actually grows in an organic fashion, although there's no organic certification for cannabis at this time, or because it's not legal through the federal law. And this is at a local dispensary near me. It's only, I think, in the state of Nevada, maybe California. So source it locally. It has a higher percentage of CBD to THC, and I will make a video on that in the future. My last hemp or cannabis video was taken down by YouTube off my Growing Your Greens channel as being in violation of something, and I wrote them and they never told me why it was violated. So I will be likely reposting that video again here pretty soon. Next question is from Emily, or comment is from Emily BH. To make it healthier, make a smaller portion so you can eat it fresh and live. Don't kid yourself to thinking the leftovers will be healthy because they are fermenting. Fermented foods are just decayed, dying, former living foods. The fermentation is just a decomposition of food. It would have looked prettier with the red orange pepper juice for dressing and maybe a little of the vinegar and the avocado if you hadn't blended it all together with the toppings and seasonings and instead of just sprinkled them on. All right, Emily, so I agree with yes, I could have made it look prettier by not blending all the different things in there. So thank you for that. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't. Just it kind of depends on what I feel like. Sometimes I don't want to eat the texture of certain foods and I'll just blend it up so that they're at least going to be inside me. As to don't kid myself into thinking leftovers are healthy. So yes, as I said a little bit earlier in this comment response video, freshest is bestest. Make things fresh, guys. Eat it right then and there if you have the time and are able. A lot of people are very busy these days and don't have the time to do all this stuff. And then, I have friends of mine that basically just go out and eat it like a restaurant because they don't have the time to make stuff. Would it be healthier for them to get something freshly prepared at the restaurant or something they hand prepared at home and vacuum save? Very important, vacuum save. When I vacuum save things, unless I leave it in the fridge for overly long and I forget about it, it does not ferment in the fridge. The air is taken out and it stays preserved. And also my fridge is at a super cold temperature, 36 degrees, It's not at 40 degrees, it's not 42 degrees. At higher temperatures, food basically spoils, loses nutrition faster. I'm not saying vacuum saving is better than fresh by any means, but it's right underneath it, right? Right underneath it, in my opinion. And then the other thing is, fermented foods are just decayed, formerly dying living foods. Fermentation is just a decomposition of the food. So I mean, there's many ways to look at fermentation. I know in some raw food camps, such as natural hygiene, fermented food is decayed food, rotting food. We shouldn't put that in our bodies. And, that's what I learned too. So for a long time, my raw foods path, I hadn't eaten a lot of fermented foods. But as more data comes out, as more research comes out, as I meet more people such as Sandor Katz, who really wrote the encyclopedia about fermentation, talking to him about the benefits of fermentation, fermentation is an ancient culture that has been used for thousands of years, right? It's super unhealthy. They wouldn't be doing it. Fermentation can make certain foods more nutritious than they previously were. Not to say that we should only eat fermented foods. Fermented foods do not make any majority part of my diet. Fermented foods have also traditionally been used for food stores. I went to the kimchi museum. There's a video on this channel when I went to the kimchi museum in Korea, how they would basically traditionally store foods and make kimchi over the winter when they couldn't harvest vegetables, right? I do think that many cultures add too much salt to fermented foods, and then it actually could become quite toxic and a big problem. So, I make most of the fermented foods I eat myself and use very little, if any, salt. And Sandor Katz once again says salt is not necessary to ferment your foods. That being said, you guys could believe what you want. I'm believing what I want, and based on some of the data I've seen, fermented foods in small amounts, especially if it increases the diversity of your diet, can be a beneficial thing, right? If I didn't eat fermented foods, I basically would not be eating the whole bean category and be leaving out that categorically, and I believe that to be worse than eating some beans in a fermented way, personally. I mean, of course, I eat other beans, such as the snap peas and other beans, but my bean consumption would be a lot more limited. I eat, bean sprouts would be a lot more limited if I didn't eat fermented beans, such as the natto, the tempeh, when I could get it raw. Also, the fermented beans that I make, as well as the miso, okay? Next question or comment is from Brother Eric D. Marquez. Okay, Raw is no longer Raw. Raw Bros, no longer Raw. Raw Vanna, no longer Raw. Raw Food World, no longer Raw. So, I mean, the first thing I will say to that is that just because I eat a very small percentage, maybe 1% of my total calories or less is coming from cooked foods, you're calling me no longer raw? That's up to you guys. I consider myself a raw foodist. I made one of the first websites on raw foods, living-foods.com, which is still up in all its glory and still looks the same as I made it back in 1995. And on there, the definition of living or raw foods is, I think, if somebody eats at least 75 to 80% raw. I think it's 75% actually, because I talked it over with Dr. Rick Dina, and basically that was a consortium or the consensus at the time that you could be considered raw if you eat at least 75% raw. And so it wasn't this 100% dogma. You don't get a magic pass, or you don't get to be bulletproof like Supergirl or whatever, Wonder Woman, if you eat 100% raw. There's no magic bullet, in my opinion. And that's number one. So I can still consider myself raw. The overwhelming majority of my diet is raw. I might have a few heat processed ingredients sometimes at night, but not like every day. I mean, today I had 2 meals of juice, and then I had a big cantaloupe, and I'm gonna eat some more strawberries and maybe some more fruit. And I had my buckwheat, sprouted buckwheat with basil and parsley, cilantro, and avocados. And I'd like to know, Brother Eric D. Marquez, please make videos on what you eat and share that with the world, right? Put yourself out to criticism, right? So that's number one. Number two is, I don't agree with classifying me as the same category as like Ravana or Raw Food World or the Raw Bros. Matt for the Raw Food World actually worked for me many years ago, and I'm not really going to get into the past. Ravana, I met her once or twice, and their diets vary greatly. They are definitely not with the same belief system as they once were. I'm not really familiar. I mean, I met the Raw Bros one time or something, but I don't really know them or follow them. But I'm pretty much still on the same path. Just because I eat a couple heat processed things, which is not a surprise. I made a video in 2017 12 foods that I eat that are not raw. I'll put a link down below. So I'm not trying to hide this and come out from just under a rock and say, oh my God, I'm totally cooked now. No, man. I still eat like all plant foods, have a couple heat processings because I believe they can enhance my diet. And hey, if you guys want to do that too, more power to you. I'm the guy educating you guys about it because nobody in the raw foods movement is really talking about this and, you know, and stepping outside the box. So yes, I agree that stepping outside the box and being the one that's different, you're going to get picked on a little bit. But to me, it's all about making a greater difference in the world. And if I'm the person that you heard about, hey man, this guy, crazy guy John, has some fermented bean products, and hey, that might be good. It might be good to get my K2. It might be good to do this. It might be good to enhance my diet and get some beans in me because of second bean meal effect that's been shown in science, and you know, the different phytonutrients and more importantly, fibers that are in the beans, you know, and I bring that to you. I've done my job even if I got to take some criticism. That's what I think of that. All right, next question is from Recess Javes. What's your take on Dr. Sebi's alkaline mythology and discovering of the hybrid food system? Carrots are supposedly GMO and are not in the correct pH range. Right, so if I remember, I'll put a link down below top my video I did on hybrid foods way back in the day. You know, I talk about this specifically, and just to, you know, give you a condensed answer, the alkaline food methodology. So, I mean, alkaline methodology is basically one concept that we should pay attention to when eating a diet, but is not the only concept, right? Once again, you know, there are many factors to consider, and one of them is a food alkaline or acid forming in their body, which, you know, I'm not really going to comment more on that, but you know, the overwhelming majority of my diet is an alkaline rich diet, so I will say that. Next is the question of hybrid foods. So man has been hybridizing foods for a long time. I do have some more wild foods growing in my garden here, like probably more like the lamb's quarters you guys probably can't see in the video. And you know, would we have purple basil if it was not hybridized through either nature's methods like, you know, pollination or crossbreeding? You know, we would probably have it. It could happen, but can it be sped up by man intervention of causing things to hybrid and create different colors and different nutrients? Absolutely. Do I personally believe hybrid foods are bad? You know, I eat plenty of hybrid foods, but I also eat many heirloom foods and many other kinds of foods. I do not eat any GMO foods. I do not agree with GMO foods. To me, that is not the same as being a hybrid. That's, you know, man manipulation of genes that could not happen in nature, whereas hybrid foods could naturally happen in nature. You know, I look at a food, instead of being a hybrid or not, I would ask you guys to look at if they're more nutrient dense or not, if they have more micronutrients, you know, and unique micronutrients that you're not able to get. That would be more important to me than simply if something is a hybrid food or not. You know, so I don't really live by that kind of motto or belief. Carrots are supposedly GMO and not in the correct pH range. So carrots, according to my research, are not GMO, especially when I'm buying organic carrots, and not in the correct pH range. I mean, I eat a lot of different foods in my diet. Carrots are just one of them, and my diet isn't a carrot-based diet by any means. Once again, I think a balance is very important. And if you eat things that are not in the proper pH range, if you believe that to be true, then, you know, as long as you eat a really wide variety of things, you know, hopefully things will balance out for you if you have a properly balanced diet. All right. Next question is from Lauren Mickerson. Dogs are carnivores. So my comment is that cats are obligate carnivores. That means they must be carnivores. And my personal belief is that, you know, dogs are like scavenging carnivores. Technically, they're kind of like scavenging carnivores, so they have more of an anatomy of a carnivore, but they don't need to eat meat or just be strictly carnivorous like a cat does. Cat will have some severe challenges if it is fed, you know, only plants without proper supplementation, because that is the caveat. I have friends that are vegan that have cats that, feed them, a vegan processed diet, which I'm not a big fan of either for other reasons because it's highly processed. But basically, dogs basically have adapted, and I don't know if they're built this way, but they've definitely adapted to eating whatever the heck they could find. My little dog, he's not going to take down any kind of animal. Actually, miniature pinchers, who my dog is, you know, they're basically rat terriers. You know, they were good at hunting rats, and you know, he caught some kittens that were birthed in my yard and killed 3 of them, and that was really difficult for me. He did not even eat them, and that pissed me off. I mean, at least if you're going to kill something, you should eat it. And then I had to deal with poor little kitty bodies that were no longer living. That was one of the hardest things I've done. So de facto, even if he kills meat, he wouldn't eat it. Then I feel that if he wouldn't kill and eat his meat, then he shouldn't probably be eating that much meat anyways, because he's happy eating basically what I eat. Plus also, I do not, you know, basically not give him meat. I do give him small amounts of meat and animal products in small amounts. And then next question is from, or comment is from IYQ2. What do you feed your sweet doggy? All right. So honestly, he eats mostly what I'm eating because I'm lazy and I don't want to like prepare food for him. I think I will make a video on the specific dog food I feed him, because I basically buy a pre-made dog food that's dehydrated and or freeze dried. I take that as a base, and then I add in all these different green powders, like powders that I don't want to eat, extra green powders that I have that are safe for dogs, kelp and other different ingredients. I might have some extra oats or something that's going bad. I think I have some like powdered tomatoes, organic powdered tomatoes that I'm not going to eat anymore, so I'm going to put that in his food. I put like mushroom powders in his food. You know, he's basically like a super nutrient dog. So I feed him that sometimes with beans and rice, and then maybe like a low sodium chicken broth or vegetable broth, depending on what I get, like at the dollar store that's organic and low sodium. And just mix in that dry food that needs to be hydrated for him to eat. So I make that for him sometimes when I'm lazy and I'm not eating something myself that is appropriate for him. Say it has like ingredients that he should not be eating, then I'll feed him his food. You know, otherwise I generally feed him what I'm eating. You know, he'll have some of my different juices sometimes. He loves jackfruit. He loves many different fruits to an extent. Like he'll eat jackfruit till he's totally stuffed, but something like apples, he might eat 1 or 2. You know, raspberries and blueberries, he'll eat those. He loves those. You know, it's very, and here's the thing, right? There's studies that show, you know, antioxidants that a dog consumes, right, make it into their bloodstream, which means to me that they are digesting it. Were they designed to do this, or did they adapt? I don't really care, but if the antioxidants are getting to his bloodstream, that means he's gonna reduce free radical damage to his body, and he's gonna live healthier and longer and be more resilient. And that's what I want for every creature on the entire planet. So I'm glad my little doggy gets to do that, and I get to, you know, feed him what I believe to be the best. But you know, I'm not into, you know, veterinary or dog science or anything like that. I try to apply from what I've learned from humans to my little dog with some modification. Next comment is from Frank Critelli. I love John. He's great, but he's an extremist. His whole life is devoted to his health. I've learned a lot from him over the years, and I've incorporated many of his protocols, but certainly not all of them because I don't have the time. So while it's great knowledge, adopt what you can. So Frank, thank you for saying that. I don't know if I consider myself an extremist. I do definitely think about my health a lot more than most people because I have gone through the situation of almost losing my life, so it is very important to me. I do try to pay as much attention to my health, but I'm definitely not perfect by any means, and I am still learning all the time. But I definitely love your comment. So I would definitely, just like Frank says, man, I'm a little bit more extreme than most people out there doing any diet, you know, and I encourage you guys, actively encourage you guys to take the different components from what you see in my videos, like, oh, I like that John says this. I'm going to try this in my diet. See if it makes a difference for you, right? That's the biggest gift I could give you, right? Don't try to duplicate exactly what I'm doing. You're going to go crazy unless you don't have a life, because it takes a lot of time, and I can't even keep up and do it all myself, all right? All right, next question is from Mike's 2842. Is IWI algae oil hexane processed? So I did speak with IWI. That's the algae oil that I take, that I talk about in the video I did with Dr. Rick. Is DHA necessary for raw vegans is DHA supplementation. Necessary for raw vegans, you're gonna have to watch that video. If I remember, I'll put a link down below to that. I take the IWI here and there. I kind of like ran out of it for a little bit, so I haven't been taking a little bit. So I've substituted in taking like a astaxanthin, grown in Hawaii. But, I talked to IWI in detail at the trade show, and this is what I get to do. I get to do my research, and it is not hexane processed. That was the first question I asked. They have one of the cleanest processes from what they described to me, and I do want to visit them and make a video one of these days. I think they're down in Texas where the algae is actually grown in the U.S. and processed on site. So they have the least processed algae oil. All right, next comment is from Fox Ultra Real. Vegetables are way healthier than fruits. Most fruits contain too much sugar, fructose plus glucose. All right, Fox. So, I thought I'd stand up a little bit and defend some fruits. So, I would probably, it depends on what fruit you're looking at. So yes, a lot of the fruits of this day that has been hybridized for their sweetness, are still can be healthy, but I would definitely say vegetables are healthier. But let's not trash on fruits. Fruits are still healthier than honey, than sugar, than basically most every other processed food in the grocery store, including pasta and other things. So, let's not diss on fruit too much. Also, there are some fruits that are way healthier than vegetables, So, iceberg lettuce versus wild Canadian blueberries, grown that are pesticide free, that like the ones I get, right? Those are way healthier than some iceberg lettuce. And like the phytonutrient content is off the charts. So, I want to encourage you guys to do a big diet variety and not necessarily exclude any food groups. Fruit's bad, so I'm not going to eat it at all, right? We need some fruits in us. Fruits have different kind of fiber, especially like cactus fruits have some amazing fiber in there, right? All right, next comment. So dark. Can you maybe explain what's the point of vegetables? I only understand fruits, greens, and nuts rather well. Why eat vegetables if you can simply eat more greens? All right, so here's, just real quick, I think I'm running out of time on the camera battery, is that each part of the vegetable has different nutrition. So, if we look at the celery here, you could eat the celery greens, which are actually quite kind of bitter, in my opinion. And then we have the stem, which would be considered a vegetable, celery stem versus the leaves. So basically any leafy green, like I could eat the stems of this shiso here. And the stems basically concentrates different nutrients, where the vegetables concentrate different nutrients than the leaves. Every different part of the plant concentrates different nutrients, may have different fibers as well. And so the leafy greens may contain more phytonutrients and phytochemicals, but the stalks of the plant are the mineral stores. They're literally the backbone. Calcium could be a backbone mineral. Silica could be a backbone mineral of plants that give its rigidity. And, while you could eat more leafy green vegetables to get these nutrition, why do that when you can eat, other vegetables, right? And a lot of vegetables can be difficult to digest. That's why I encourage juicing them. I might eat some celery sometimes, but I juice a lot more celery so I get the nutrients from that stem into me. And a big issue these days is basically mineral deficiencies, in my opinion. All right, I got a few more comments I want to respond to before it gets too dark here. Let's see. Share light. When it comes to eating lots of nuts at once, actually would be hard out in nature because of the shells, etc., and that we don't need lots of it and only in winter. What about greens then? Out in nature, we would also not be able to eat a lot of greens at once. That's why we need a juicer. Maybe later on we can learn that we don't actually need a lot of greens, ? All right, sure, light. So, there's so many different kinds of things out there, and basically, if you had this many greens and you had a garden or you were, walking in nature like I have many times. I was up in Iceland walking along a stream, and there was some baby young grass that was just emerging like wheatgrass, but it probably wasn't wheat, out of the ground, and I just started eating it, and it tasted so amazing. When something tastes so amazing, it's so good. you crave and you want to eat more of it. You desire it, right? I know there's teachings out there that greens are not good, and in some camps of raw food, such as maybe high fruit eaters, they say foods are not good. One of the best experiences I had when I went up to Canada last for the Canadian Fruit Festivals, I hung out with these two guys that eat lots of fruit, and on the drive, we were talking about like vegetables, and I was encouraging them that they're very important. And they're like, you know what? They just don't taste good. They're not appealing to me. They're not desirable. And then I took them to a farm because I was making a video. We went to this guy's farm. He grows really high quality stuff. Oh, cool. And there's some hummingbird eating my goji berry flower sap. Took him to this farm, and they started sampling some of the greens. And oh my God, those greens were excellent. At least as good as mine, if not even better. Right? And then they understood that, wow, greens can be quite tasty, quite delicious, and I can desire them a lot. And, if we look at the animals that are most closely related to us, like the bonobo monkeys, right? Yes, they eat some fruit, but, monkeys also eat lots of greens, and I believe they are quite important. You can and should be desiring them. Once again, also, if you don't have a taste for them, also, your microbiome may be rejecting them. If you've always been living on a high fruit diet and you never eat vegetables, they might not taste to you too good because now you're not feeding the microbiome that you have existing in your gut, which is basically based around fruit because that's what you've been feeding them. You don't have the microbiome in there to do the vegetables. So that's why I think juicing can be good to introduce more vegetables into your diet if you haven't eaten them before, because also the roughage of the fiber in the vegetables can be hard to digest. And I remind everybody that the juicing removes some of the fiber, but not all of it. It removes the insoluble fiber, but keeps the soluble fiber, the fiber that's most important for our beneficial microbes in our guts. All right, the next question is from the Existential Vegan. Hey, John, you definitely want to hold out for the right girlfriend, but the other stuff, trying to be the best, obsessing over an optimal diet, does more harm than good. I've been the same way, I have to do the best job at work possible, etc. And that's a terrible way to go through life. It puts a ridiculous amount of pressure on you. It is not psychologically healthy. I asked the same questions. Was it my upbringing? I find if I try to stay conscious of the behavior, it helps a little. Anyway, stay vegan, stay raw, but be careful. All right, so what I would say is that I really don't obsess over the optimal diet. I mean, it is definitely an area of my interest. And I mean, to some people, I am excessive. I am, extreme. I'm an extremist. I mean, if people want to label me or judge me and put single words on me, it's your guys' right to do that. But I would not necessarily say I'm obsessive. I mean, I did live with a girl that did have an eating disorder, and it was unfortunate. She has since passed. Rest in peace, Amy. And she was definitely obsessed over that, so I could see what it could be like. I mean, yes, my mom did raise me to be more perfectionist, which is good in some levels, but then I try not to take it too extreme. And as I learn more, I'm a little more mellow these days. I talked to some of my other ex-girlfriends that I'm still friends with, and they're just like, man, John, you're so much more mellow these days. If we were to go out today, we probably wouldn't have broke up. But yeah, so live and learn. I personally don't think I'm obsessing. I just want to know what's out there to learn for myself, to try to do that and then teach others. And we all have to do something with our time, and I love spending my time in this way because, I don't know what else I do. I could just start doing more 420 and smoking it all day and sitting back and just zoning out, but I personally don't find that fun at all. Like, that's really not good to me, but, whatever. Anyways, thank you for your comment. Next comment is from Mills Anise. I love Rick. He has a beautiful soul. He gives his love. He loves animals. I dig him so much. That is why I wish all in my heart he would be 100% raw. Look at the difference in vitality between John and Rick. It's no comparison. Go raw, Rick, please. And so this person really loves Rick, and they're saying that, comparing me to Rick in a video, And here's the thing, comparing two different people is not really fair unless they're twins. I would say it's completely fair. But, Rick and I mean, number one, Rick is older than I am. The other thing is, Rick has different genes and DNA and different family history than I am. I mean, I'm half Asian, half white, so I'm maybe blessed more with a better skin color. But also, realize that skin color can also be affected by the food and the diet you eat, right? I'm not really going to comment on Rick's diet because it's not my place to do so. But what I will say is that, how Rick eats and how I eat, while we have many things in common, we also have many things in difference. And will say some of the things that I do that I believe to be different than Rick. Because, I'm not sitting by Rick and watching every different meal. I might go over their place for dinner and I might have a general understanding of how he eats based on the food that he has in his kitchen, which, of course, I'm not really going to share with you guys. But what I will say is what I do. And what I do is I have like basically eight pounds of produce juiced form, basically 2 quarts every day, usually a green vegetable-based juice, which lately has been like, today's was romaine, lettuce, rosemary, cucumber, and celery. Second juice is a root-based juice, so it's purple carrots, maybe some a little bit of pineapple for sweetness, maybe some lime, maybe some ginger in there, beets, and just other random greens or cabbage, whatever I'm trying to get rid of that's really deeply pigmented in color to get some, more roots in me. So I have greens and roots, and I might have, a salad or something for dinner, or for lunch actually these days. I had like parsley, basil, cilantro, sprouted buckwheat, avocado, and garlic in that. And then tonight, then I had a cantaloupe. Then I'm going to probably go inside after this video and have some berries to eat, and maybe, I got some apricots, or actually I got to eat some peaches that are from the farm locally that are ripe that I need to eat. So that's what I eat, So, and here's the thing, I focus on concentrating my nutrients. And once again, not saying what Rick does or not, but, I take a wide variety of different kind of supplements. I believe I take more than Rick, but I cannot verify that because I don't know what he does. I take more powders. I spend more money on powders than Rick. Not to say that they're necessarily the key to my health, but here's the thing, how I look reflects on me and my lifestyle, my diet, and what I do in my life, right? And, I think when you start comparing yourself to others, or comparing yourself to other people, it's not necessarily a good thing. I want you guys to be your own personal best, right? Take the components of what I do in my life that makes sense to you, like, hey, John does this juicing. I think juicing could help me be more vibrant because it allows me to get more vegetables in that I otherwise normally would. Hey, do that. I do know that, Rick eats a head of cauliflower a day, or has for many days, or does quite often, and that's white. I would encourage him to eat some purple stuff. I really try to go out of my way to eat more purple foods and have purple foods in my diet every single day. I've been doing, I forgot to mention, I do, turmeric, ginger, lemon, basically shots of 3 ounces every day these days, so I do a lot of things, Also, I grow a large garden. I definitely know that Dr. Rick and Karen, I did help them with the garden, but, sometimes it kind of has a lower on the priority list for them. And for me, it's one of my top priorities in life is to have things growing in my garden so that I can eat out of it, Live food, live bodies, dead food, dead bodies is what Jay Cordich taught me. So I want you guys to eat as much live food as possible. Rick probably makes more things fresh every day because they make a dinner every night. They eat together. And, sometimes I'll make things in advance. So, hey, man, like, take one for Rick. He's doing better than I am in some ways. So we're all just doing the best we can. And, I want to encourage you guys to do the best you can as well. All right, last comment or question is from Better You, Better World V. How do you get enough selenium? I can't get raw Brazil nuts. All right, so many foods can contain selenium, and even Brazil nuts, just because people say Brazil nuts have selenium, I have seen data basically saying that not all Brazil nuts contain selenium. It depends on where the Brazil nuts were grown. And when I learned this, because I tested Brazil nuts from different countries, it was quite amazing. I don't know where you live that you cannot get Brazil nuts. You should be able to order them from somewhere. I could get them at the corner store, like, 2 blocks away from my house. I could get them so many places. So I don't know where you live. But, other foods besides Brazil nuts contain selenium, or can contain selenium. But the problem is selenium is not a standard fertilizer used in agriculture, right? This is also something very different between Dr. Rick and I. I mean, I've significantly looked into, going back to the last question, significantly looked into soil health in gardening and growing and food systems and some of the deficiencies in those food systems and how to basically augment those food systems and how to bring some of that technology into my garden, into my yard, and supplement my soil in the best way possible, including fertilizers that contain selenium in there so that when I grow my plants, this plant contains selenium. I have a bed over there of cat mint or catnip, and catnip is one of the highest selenium accumulators. So I would encourage you guys, if you can't get Brazil nuts, get some catnip seeds, grow some catnip. I think that should be widely available, hopefully. And then get a fertilizer with selenium in it, right? And grow your own, basically, plants that have selenium in there, right? Every different plant will absorb or bioaccumulate different kinds of nutrients, take in different nutrients in their cells. And, you know, I'm sure there's a lot more that will take up selenium if you have selenium in the soil. So that's another big challenge, is that seleniums are not in common agriculture soils of today. It's one of the minerals from my research that can be quickly depleted and is not replenished. And that's why in Brazil nuts, in certain locations where Brazil nuts are basically huge trees that basically grow in the forest, they're not like cultivated. You know, the forest system has selenium in the soil. It's shaded and covered by these big trees. These trees drop their leaves. The leaves contain the selenium because it's from the soil that goes in the tree, goes in the leaves. The leaves then drop on the ground, and then they basically compost down. The selenium goes back in the soil. It breaks down. It gets absorbed back by the roots, and then the cycle repeats itself, right? And there's so many different cycles and things in nature that we should become aware about. And this is how I spend my time to learn about, you know, this or this or this, so that I can become more knowledgeable for myself, but also share with you guys, since, you know, one of my roles in life and a big part of my life is to share what I've learned with others, you know, to basically make a difference in the world and to be the change I want to see in the world, right? And that's why I make these videos. So hopefully that helps you out. I don't know that that's going to help you out, but hopefully you could grow your own cat mint or catnip and get some kind of fertilizer that contains selenium near you. You know, I'd probably look for, I mean, different kinds of rock matters contain different spectrum of minerals, and that's why I'm a big advocate of using things like rock dust, and not just one type of rock dust, but I use like 6 different kinds of rock dust in my garden. I'm an extremist, all right. You know, I also put kelp in my garden and put sea minerals in my garden. The sea and the ocean have trace minerals that the land may no longer have because it's all washed off into the ocean due to soil degradation. So many different factors. I really hope this video has been helpful for you guys. I know it was a little bit long, but I'm glad I got to respond to some of these comments off my chest, because a lot of times I'll see the comment and I'm just like, I don't respond, because if I start responding to one, then I'm going to want to respond to other ones, and then people are going to feel left out. And once again, I can't even get everything done I need to do in my life as it is. All right. So hopefully you guys appreciate this video. If you guys did, hey, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Also be sure to share this video with somebody else that you think it helps. Share it in a raw food form so they can kind of hear my opinions on some of the topics that I discussed today. Also be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you don't miss out on my new and upcoming episodes that have coming out every 5 to 7 days. You never know where I'll be learning on my channel. Make sure to click the little bell so you get notified as my videos come out. Also be sure to check my past episodes. My past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 500 episodes at this time on this YouTube channel, dedicated to sharing with you guys, in my opinion, the best way to eat a plant-based, raw, and living fruit and vegetable dominated diet, with, you know, interviews from doctors, as well as a lot of things that I've learned, and basically, you know, information you're not going to hear on any other raw foods channel that, you know, might be, you know, stepping out of the box a little bit. But I really want you guys to be open and aware of these things, because I believe them to be some of the best knowledge out there from what I've discovered. Okay, so with that, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always the best.